Thank you, Isaiah. Thank you. Okay, everybody.
Hello.
I cannot thank you guys enough for being here. Seriously.
What's that?
I'm thankful that all of you are here. Anyway, good morning. I want to thank the Socrates Public Library for having me today and for creating a space where people can come together, listen, reflect, and connect with one another. Standing here in Socrates means something to me. What happened? Oh, go ahead. This is the community where part of my story unfolded. This is where I worked. This is where I served the public. This is where I was underestimated. This is where people tried to silence me. And today I'm standing in the same community using the voice they hoped I would lose. Because silence does not take power away from powerful people. Silence protects them. The moment we begin to speak, we begin taking our power back. That is what power looks like. Power is not pretending something did not hurt you. Power is not walking through life acting as though nothing can break you. Power is being honest enough to say, it hurt me, it changed me. There were days it almost destroyed me, but it did not get the final say. My name is Melissa Fisher. I'm an author, speaker, workplace culture advocate, wife, mother, and grandmother. My husband, Mark, has been beside me 33 years. I'm grateful for the way he stands beside me to these events and continues to support me through it all. I'm the mother of Marcus, Michael, and Mariah. I have two beautiful daughter-in-laws, Elizabeth and Courtney. And one of the greatest gifts, which you two will see very soon, in my life is being a grandmother to Caston, Apollo, Colton, Rowan, and Melody, with another blessing on the way in about 3 weeks. That is my life, that is my foundation, that is my strength. And I wrote a memoir called Where Pain Meets Power. I wrote it because I needed to tell my story in my own words, not through workplace rumors, not through someone else's version of me, not through documents written by the same people who held the power. I needed the truth to have a voice. For 3.5 years, I worked inside a courthouse, a place where justice lived, a place where fairness and accountability were supposed to matter, a place where human beings stood before the court during some of the most frightening and uncertain moments of their lives. I loved working with the public. I loved looking people in the eyes. I loved listening to them and helping them understand what was happening. Every day, different people came through those doors and stood at the courtroom window. Some were scared, some were ashamed, some were angry, some were confused, and some simply needed someone to slow down, listen, and treat them like a human being. There were days when I was struggling with what was happening behind the scenes, and then someone would come to my window carrying something even heavier. I would think God sent this person to me for a reason, helping them put my own pain back into perspective. It reminded me that while I was struggling, someone else was struggling too. Helping them, sorry, a little nervous up here. And I wanted that person to know somebody cared, because no matter what someone has been accused of, no matter what mistakes they have made, and no matter what brought them through those courtroom doors, they are still a human being. And human beings deserve dignity. But while I was giving dignity to the people standing in front of me, mine was slowly being stripped away behind me. That is what people do not always understand about the emotional abuse. It does not always happen loudly. Sometimes it happens through whispers, isolation, humiliation, and favoritism, constant criticism, rules that apply to one person but never apply to the other. Sometimes it's the one person slowly being made to feel as though everything about them is wrong. The way they speak, the way they dress, the way they work, the way they carry themselves. And when that happens repeatedly, it does not stay at work. It follows you home. It sits at the dinner table with you. It affects your sleep. your health, your peace, your confidence, your relationships, your entire life. It makes strong people question their strength. It makes capable people question their ability. And it can make someone who has spent a lifetime solving problems begin to believe that maybe they are the problem. That is why emotional abuse is so dangerous. It does not always leave bruises people can see, but it can leave wounds that change the way a person sees herself. I know that because I lived it. Every day I walked into that courthouse felt like I was entering a battlefield. I never knew what kind of harassment, criticism, or humiliation would be waiting for me. There were times I was yelled at beside my desk and embarrassed in an open court. People told me I was weak for not fighting back. I was not weak. I was trying to hold on to professionalism, my dignity, and who I was. I respected the positions my bosses held. I reported the problems. I did not believe I had to go around. I did not believe I had to go round for round, fight for fight, to prove I was strong. There were mornings when I sat in my car and prayed for enough strength to walk through those doors. I never knew what I was walking into, but I also never knew who might be coming through those doors needing help that day. And that mattered to me. That kept me going. I kept showing up because I loved the work. I loved helping people. I loved seeing what needed to be improved and finding a way to improve it. I prepared calendars for 2 the courtroom running smoothly. I secured a $15,000 grant. I helped update the courtroom. I brought in credit card machines so people could make payments more easily instead of missing work or having additional fees and fines added to their fines they were already struggling to pay. I did that because I wanted to help people. I paid attention. I noticed what was not working. And when I saw something that could be improved, I worked to improve it. People saw the work getting done. What they did not see was what it was costing me. At one point, I was training 2 new court clerks while being told there was no money for a raise. And that taught me something I will never forget. Workplaces will use your value long before they are willing to recognize it. I was supposedly not qualified after failing 1 test, but somehow I was qualified enough to train 2 new clerks, run calendars for judges, improve the courtroom, secure a $15,000 grant, and keep being given more work. Do not confuse how much a workplace uses you with how much it values you. I have always been a worker. I go to work, I'm not there to gossip. I'm not there to sit around watching what everyone else is doing. I'm not there to create drama. I show up, I do my job, I look for ways to make things better, and then I go home. But workplace culture can teach you some very hard lessons. Sometimes focus is mistaken for attitude. Sometimes independence is mistaken for arrogance. Sometimes the person who refuses to join the gossip becomes everybody else's everyone gossips about. And sometimes hardworking people make insecure people feel uncomfortable. Not because the hardworking person is doing anything wrong, but because effort has a way of exposing the people who are not given the same effort. And once you become the person everyone depends on, people stop asking how much you're carrying. They simply keep giving you more. They praise people for being strong without asking what they have been forced to survive. We admire the person who keeps showing up, the person who carries everything, the person everyone depends on, the person who never asks for help, the person everyone says can handle it. Melissa will do it, Melissa will handle it, Melissa will figure it out, and I did, every single time. But sometimes the person handling everything is not okay. Sometimes that person keeps going because stopping feels like failure. Sometimes the strongest person in the room is silently begging someone to notice she is drowning. For years, I believed strength meant enduring everything. I believed being powerful meant never letting anyone see me fall. I believed that if I worked harder, kept doing the right thing, kept proving myself, eventually the right people would see my worth. They would see the truth, but pain taught me something different. There is a difference between strength and self-abandonment. There's a difference between perseverance and allowing people to destroy your peace. There is a difference between being kind and remaining silent while someone mistreats you. And there comes a moment when standing up for yourself is no longer disrespectful, it's necessary. Because silence does not always keep the peace. Sometimes silence keeps the abuse comfortable. Sometimes silence protects the people causing the damage. Sometimes silence teaches others they can continue hurting you without consequences. My silence never changed what was happening. It only made it easier for others. And when a workplace decides it wants someone gone, it will find something to use. For me, it was a civil service exam. After 3.5 years, sorry guys, after 3.5 years of already doing the job, I was required to take a test. At the same time, I was running a courtroom, preparing reports, helping the public, and dealing with harassment every day. I took that test, and I failed. One number, and suddenly I was treated as though I could no longer do the job I had already been doing successfully for 3.5 years. As though I could no longer answer phones, run reports, prepare calendars, handle paperwork, help the public, or perform work I was already proven I could do. That grade became louder than my loyalty, louder than my work ethic, louder than my experience, louder than the improvements I made, louder than the letters people had written about how helpful I was and an asset I had become to the court. People took the time to write because someone had listened to them. Someone had treated them with respect. Someone had seen their frustration and tried to understand. But somehow, none of that mattered as much as the test score. And mentally, that did something to me. Because when people in authority repeatedly treat you as though you are not enough, eventually you start questioning yourself. You start wondering whether your work matters, whether your experience matters, whether anything you accomplish matters. You begin looking at yourself through the eyes of the people trying to reduce you. And that is one of the most damaging things we can do. We become our own worst enemy when we allow somebody else's opinion to become our opinion of ourselves. A test can measure how well someone memorizes information, that's all. It does not measure how someone responds to a crisis. It does not measure how someone handles a frightened person standing in front of them. It does not measure when someone can remain calm when other people are angry or screaming. It does not measure someone's heart. It does not measure their work ethic, their compassion, their loyalty, their courage, their judgment, their ability to solve problems, their ability to lead. And it certainly does not measure how they treat another human being. A test score can tell you how someone performed on a test. It cannot tell you who they are, and neither can a title. I am not against degrees. My children graduated, my son graduated from college. I'm proud of every person who worked hard for their degree. But a degree does not automatically make someone compassionate. A title does not automatically make someone a leader. And the lack of one does not make someone small. The true measure of a person is not what hangs on the wall behind them. It's how they treat people who cannot do anything for them. It's how they behave when no one is applauding. It is what they do when they have power over someone else. Do they use the power to create fear, or do they use it to create safety? Do they protect people, or do they protect bad behavior? For much of the time I was there, I was doing the work of two people. I improved the courtroom, I served the public, I kept things running smoothly. One judge repeatedly thanked me for it. He told me I had good karma. He thanked me for keeping his courtroom organized and getting him in and out smoothly. That same judge knew what I had been dealing with. He had told me he was sorry and that what was happening to me was not right. Then he learned I had failed the test. After that, he would barely look at me. When I asked if I could stay and continue working for him, his answer was no. you failed. So the work that had been good enough for years was suddenly no longer good enough because of one score. My work was recognized when it was useful, but when it mattered most, one grade was used to erase everything I had already proven. The woman they brought back to replace me had failed that same test twice. She was given another opportunity. She was allowed to stay. I failed once after running and improving that courtroom for years, and I was terminated. Less than 3 months later, that test was eliminated. The new clerks never had to take it. After I was terminated, another clerk came in and lasted only 6 weeks before she was gone. That told me the problem was bigger than me. The same system that had claimed the test determined whether I was qualified suddenly decided the test was no longer necessary. What was acceptable for one person was not acceptable for another. That is favoritism. That is double standard, and that is injustice. Inside a place that is supposed to represent fairness, justice for whom? Because it certainly did not feel like justice for me. And injustice has a way of making you question everything. You question your work, your judgment, whether you're doing the right thing matters. You question whether the truth will ever be enough. But there is where pain begins to meet power. Not when everyone apologizes, not when everyone wrong is correct, not when the people who hurt you finally admit. Pain meets power when you stop allowing the injustice to determine how you see yourself. Their inability to recognize me did not make me less capable. Their favoritism did not make me less deserving. Their silence did not make my truth less real. Their power over my position did not give them power over who I was. That took me a long time to understand, because when you have been emotionally beaten down for long enough, you do not walk away feeling powerful. You walk away confused, exhausted, embarrassed, angry, broken. You replay conversations. You think about everything you should have said. You wonder what you could have done differently. I used to believe staying made me strong. I believed that if I refused to leave, they had not defeated me. I did not want to abandon the people I served. I did not want another person to be hired and experience what I experienced. I wanted the behavior to stop. I wanted someone with authority to step in and say, this is wrong. Instead, I was told hands were tied. I was told judges are untouchable. I was told bosses could be mean and that I still had to do my job. Of course, a boss does not have to be your best friend. But being in charge does not excuse cruelty. Expecting someone to do a job does not excuse humiliation. And no degree, title, or amount of authority gives anyone the right to emotionally destroy another human being. People often call someone emotional when they do not want to take responsibility for the pain they caused. They call someone too sensitive when the truth makes them uncomfortable. They tell victims to move on because it can require everybody else to look at what was allowed. And what leaders allow becomes the culture. If leadership protects toxic behavior, everyone else learns that the toxic behavior is safe. If leadership ignores favoritism, favoritism grows. If leadership punishes the person who speaks instead of the person causing the harm, silence becomes part of the problem. So I want to ask every leader, supervisor, manager, and business owner something. Could you work in the environment that you create for your employees? Because your employees do every single day. If someone has to sit in their car and pray for strength before walking into a workplace, something is deeply wrong. If your best workers are exhausted because they are carrying everyone else, something is deeply wrong. If people are afraid to speak honestly because they know they will become the problem, something is deeply wrong. Policies do not create healthy workplaces by themselves. People do. Leaders do. Accountability does. Humanity does. When I was terminated, I cried for 3 weeks because I was broken. I had been holding myself together for 3.5 years, and suddenly I could not hold it together anymore. Not because that position was my entire life. It was because of what had been done to me for a while. While I was there. The humiliation, the injustice, the years of giving everything I had and then being treated as though I had contributed nothing. But sometimes what feels like an ending becomes the place where your real purpose begins. People would tell me to sue. Even the town told me I could sue. But people say that as if a lawsuit gives you back what was taken from you. It does not give you back your peace. It does not erase emotional damage because the scars are not visible. And sometimes fighting for accountability costs you even more emotionally. Throughout those years, I kept notes. I documented everything. I saved emails and letters. I wrote down conversations. I held on to the truth even when other people tried to rewrite it. Eventually, those notes became something more. I needed to tell my story in my own words, not the town's version, not the workplace version, not the version that made other people comfortable, mine. And when people tried to silence me, God put a pen in my hand. That pen became my voice. Page by page, I began separating who I was from what happened to me. Pain became words. Words became a book. And the story people hoped would disappear became where pain meets power. That is why I gave the book that title. Because did not arrive after the pain disappeared. The pain did not disappear. Power arrived when I realized the pain would not own the rest of my life. Power arrived when I stopped asking whether people approved of my truth. Power arrived when I understood that my voice was something anyone else had the authority to give me. It had always belonged to me, and I made a decision. The people who hurt me would no longer be the only people allowed to speak. I would speak, not with hatred, not with revenge, not by becoming cruel, but with the truth. The distinction matters to me because I survived people who hurt me, and I still work every day not to let it come. That is power. Power is not destroying the person who's tried to destroy you. Power is telling the truth without allowing bitterness to consume you. Power is refusing to let what hurt you control the person who you become. I do not hate anyone for what they did to me. Hatred is a waste of energy. Most of the time, the person you're angry with is not sitting around thinking about you. But you are carrying them everywhere. You are giving them space in your mind. You are giving them space in your life. Releasing hatred does not mean excusing what happened. It does not mean pretending it did not happen. And it does not mean giving up on truth or accountability. I could stand here and say names. I have documentation, I have notes, I have recordings. I know what was said and what was done, but I choose not to. The person who hurt you at work is still someone's mother, father, grandparent, sibling, or friend. Their family may know a completely different version of them. I am not interested in destroying anyone's life. We all have to live with what we do to other people. And we affect people more than we realize. Forgiveness and accountability are not opposites. You can forgive someone in your heart and still tell the truth about what they did. You can release hatred without releasing your boundaries. You can remain compassionate without giving people unlimited access to hurt you again. You can wish someone healing and still decide they no longer belong in your life. That is not bitterness, that is wisdom. Sometimes standing up for yourself will disappoint people who benefited from your silence. Let them be disappointed. Sometimes people will call you difficult because you finally created a boundary. Let them. Sometimes people will say you changed because you stopped accepting the treatment you once tolerated. You did change. That is called healing. I would love to stand here and tell you the pain never changed me, but that would not be true. Pain made me angry. It made me sensitive, and it made me defensive. And there were times it brought out parts of me that I did not like. Healing did not mean becoming perfect. It meant becoming honest enough to recognize those parts of myself and work on them. Power is not pretending pain never changed you. Power is refusing to let the worst thing that happened to you become the worst part of who you are. Long before I worked at that courthouse, my son Michael saw something in me many adults never noticed. He had more depth and awareness at the age of 13 than some people develop in an entire lifetime. When he was 13, he gave me a poem for Christmas, and through some of the darkest moments of my life, those words stayed with me. I want to share that poem with you today. When a young girl has kids, everyone wonders what is wrong with her. They say she will be nothing and her kids will be nothing. But look at you. Look how far you have come. Look how far we have come. Your family put you down and it's a shame, but not us. We stand by your side. The 5 of us, powerful enough. We do not need others to guide us. Mark, Mariah, and I have you to guide us. You bring us down the trail. You help us conquer our fears. You help make our dreams come true. You worry about everyone else. You put everyone else before yourself. I do the same. I have your trait. I have your heart. I guess we have that mother and son bond. Just me and you. A bond that can never be broken. People judge women off their looks. But when you die, everyone will judge you for your heart because it's so big. Everything you do for everyone, they will not realize it until you're gone. But I know when that day comes, I will not shed a tear. I will look in the sky and thank God for the memories we shared. And instead of a tear, I will show a smile because I know today and in the future, I will always be proud to call you my mother. He wrote that at 13 years old. My son saw something in me before I fully saw it myself. Sometimes another person sees the light in us while we are standing in the darkest part of our lives. Sometimes one sentence stays with us. Sometimes one person believing in us reminds us of who we are. That poem stayed with me. My faith gave me strength. My husband stood beside me. And my grandchildren saved me in more ways they may never fully understand. There were days I did not want to be here anymore. Not because I wanted to die. I wanted peace. Peace from the chaos. Peace from the humiliation. Peace from the emotional exhaustion of walking into a battlefield every day and pretending I was okay while slowly falling apart. There is a difference between wanting life to end and wanting the pain to stop. People need to understand that. People need to listen before they judge. People need to stop assuming that the person who looks strong is not struggling. You never know what someone is carrying. A smile does not mean someone is not hurting. Getting the work done does not mean someone is not falling apart. Showing up does not mean someone is okay. That is why kindness matters. That is why humanity matters. That is why the way we treat people matters. People may forget the exact words you said. They may forget the work you completed. They may forget the title you held, but they will remember how you made them feel when they were struggling. They will remember whether you made them feel small. They will remember whether you listened. They will remember whether you stood beside them or joined the people trying to break them. We all have power. The question is how we use it. Do we use our power to control people? To humiliate them? To silence them? To protect bad behavior? Or do we use our power to make people feel safe? To tell the truth? To defend someone who is being mistreated? To create spaces where people can breathe? Power is not always loud. Sometimes power is the person refusing to join the gossip. Sometimes power is the person who speaks when everyone else stays silent. Sometimes power is saying, this is wrong, even when saying it costs you something. Sometimes power is walking away. Sometimes power is staying long enough to document the truth. Sometimes power is refusing to explain yourself one more time to people committed to misunderstanding you. Sometimes power is writing a book. And sometimes power is returning to the same community where people once tried to silence you and standing in front of a room using your voice.
Okay.
I did not write where pain meets power for revenge. I did not write it for sympathy. I wrote it for the person sitting in their car praying for enough strength to walk into a toxic workplace tomorrow morning. Because I was that person. I wrote it for the person who has been told they are too emotional when they are actually responding to something deeply unhealthy. I wrote it for the person who has started questioning their own reality because everyone around them keeps denying what they can clearly see and feel. I wrote it for the person who believes their title, education, job, past, or one failure determines their worth. It does not. I wrote it because someone needs to know you are not weak, you are not crazy, you are not alone, and you are not powerless. Your power may not look the way you expected it to look. It may not be a promotion, it may not be an apology, it may not be justice arriving when you deserved it. Sometimes your power is simply deciding, this will not be the end of me. I will not allow what happened to me destroy everything still waiting for me. I will not allow cruel people to teach me cruelty. I will not allow rejection to convince me that I have nothing to offer. And I will not allow one grade, one title, one workplace, or one person's opinion define my entire life. That is where healing begins. Healing is not forgetting. Healing is not pretending. Healing is not waking up one morning and suddenly no longer caring. Healing is remember without reliving it every day. Healing is telling your story without losing yourself inside of it. Healing is accepting that you may never receive the apology you deserve and deciding that your future will not wait for it. Healing is realizing that the closure is not always something another person gives you. Sometimes closure is boundaries you create, the truth you accept, the life you choose to build next. Before I close, I want to thank a few people for supporting me along the way. You guys are amazing. Like, honestly, I'm so thankful. My new coworkers, old coworker, friends, forever, my friends, my family. You guys are really, I'm thankful. A lot of people have asked me who took the picture, by the way, on my book. The picture was taken by my current boss, Regina Fitzpatrick. Regina, thank you for capturing an image that came to represent my story. And to my friends and family who have been there for me and supported me, thank you. I see the people who show up and stand beside me. I remember every text, every message, every encouraging word, every shared post, and every time someone showed up for me. Your texts, your messages, and every bit of support means the world to me, and I am very grateful. They may have terminated me, but they did not end my purpose. That they may have underestimated me, but they did not determine my value. They may have tried to silence my voice, but today I'm standing in the same community telling my story in my own words. And if there is one thing I have learned throughout all of this, it is that we do not always get to choose what happens to us, but we get to choose what happens next. They tried to write the ending of my story. God handed me a pen, and I chose to write the rest myself. That is where pain meets power. Thank you, guys.
Well done, Mike.
You did it in a bigger crowd and also
everybody around you?
Yes, oh my God, Gloria, yes, thank you.
Yeah.
You want me to end that for you?
Oh, yeah. Sorry. Forgot. I won't save the video though.